We are conditioned, to your point, to go to school to feed a capitalist system, which does sound radical until you just know it's true and it's factual. The education system was not designed for you to question anything. It was designed for you to know enough so that you didn't kill each other, to give you enough, what do they call it? Not even humanity, just enough civics so you could vote and fill out forms and stuff at work. Like, we don't want you to know too much, because then too much questioning, which is why it's shaped the way it is. George Washington, cherry tree, honesty, Lincoln, emancipator. It's why you only get this one chapter on enslavement. And if it's Texas, they were migrant workers. It's why these books are being banned in Florida and Texas and Louisiana and Alabama, because if you start to question things, then you are thinking for yourself, and a thinking people is a problem. It's a problem for the power structure. So I need everyone to be a problem, a good problem. Let's be a good problem. But I also, wanted to talk about how we engage with media, because you are a writer for many different outlets. You write for television, you write for podcasts, you write for news outlets as well. And so you are part of the media that is disseminating stuff for us to digest. And I feel like we are conditioned to pick winners and losers, to engage in content where we all have to have an opinion, and then we have to share it. So we're all content creators. We're all, reporters, and with no background. How insulting is it? It's highly insulting for me to see so many people with microphones and platforms who don't read at all. But for you, who sit in the seat every day, what are we missing as a community, and how bad is it, Michael Harriot?
Well, so one of the things is, and this is going to sound kind of elitist, but I think that we have to really kind of understand that not every opinion is equal, right? Some are more informed than others, right? Like if, you had a contusion on your arm, like, whose opinion on the matter would you trust, the auto mechanic or a medical doctor? And so when it comes to journalism, I think that someone sees someone giving an opinion, even if you're an opinion writer, right? Someone sees someone giving an opinion and says, well, why can't I give my opinion? Not understanding that, so if I talk about, there was a controversy, and there's still articles coming out about this idea of classical education that I wrote a thread about, and then I wrote an article about, right? And they, everybody has an opinion on it, right? But what you have to understand is, so I was sitting in classrooms and principals' offices at the beginning of my career, covering a school district, right? Interviewing a middle school, elementary school principal on what's going on at your school this year, right? So, and then, I studied and I worked and covered these issues. And so my opinion is not based on what I think about the stuff that's going on now. It's informed by inside information and years of research and reporting, and that opinion is based on all of that, right? So I've seen how schools are formed. I've seen how educators change test scores by individualizing education. I've seen some schools regress, and I've seen some schools progress. And the idea of that classical education is informed by all of that. So not every opinion is the same. And so there's a class of kind of writers who want to say, well, I can write, so people should listen to my opinion, although they haven't built the necessary backstory. And it's kind of and I have, being a poet, being friends, it's interesting, but it's also kind of insulting when, you got a poet say, I want to get out of poetry and start doing what you do. And okay, well, you got to start 20 years ago and, get a $27,000 a year job chasing around high school principals. You got to sit in police departments and wait for your editor, because, even back then we didn't even have, you couldn't email your story, right? So all of that gets you to the place where you have enough background for someone to even value your opinion when it's put on paper. And I think like now the state of journalism is, well, you got the camera and you got a voice and the internet is for everybody. So I'm a journalist too.
866-801-8255. Michael Harriot is here. It is Black AF history, the unwhitewashed. I just want to keep calling it unwhitewashed story of America. We're going to dig more into that. I actually have spent 2 hours in community with Shannon Sharpe and Steve Harvey. Now, I'm going to say this for everybody. Chew up the meat and spit out the bones. That is the lesson today. Chew up the meat and spit out the bones. We have visceral responses and reactions to people based on what some of the things that they've done and said that may piss us off, right? But if it's some value, I feel like we should lean in when people say something valuable. Like, I know that there are people who first time they heard me, I couldn't stand you. Okay, but understand the intent of this program. You don't have to like me. Please love the content and the intention behind it. You don't have to like the delivery. We have to get out of our own way so that we can get this goodness. So I spent 2 hours listening to Shannon Sharpe with Club Shay Shay. He did an podcast interview with Steve Harvey. And my initial reaction was, boo. And then I sat with it. And I picked out some gems. So I'm going to play them and I want to have a discussion about it because this is, to me, a demonstration of what we are doing. We are canceling people's whole body of work because of something they did or said that we don't like. I'm not talking about folk that are pedophiles and rapists. I'm not talking about them. Those people get banished, right? You harm young people. You harm people, period. You kill people. We're going to talk about mass murderers today as well. You get banished. But the rest is like opinion, how somebody gets divorced or whatever, or how they raise their children. Like, yeah, we can have an opinion on Brian McKnight, but I'm not in his household. Am I going to cancel his music as a result? Probably not. I'm not his daughter. And I may have opinions. That's his business though, and I feel like we spend so much time in other people's business that we don't work on our own, Michael Harriot. So I'm going to play this clip, clip number 2, which talks about vloggers. Steve Harvey, Shannon Sharpe. Let's play it, Smith.
Steve, how have you been able to handle that? Because you know that there are a lot of people that smile and say things in your face, and you know they say things behind your back. Dog, how do you handle that? Who are you?
First of all, man, real players,
Yeah.
them real dudes, they ain't reading blogs and they not blogging.
Mm-hmm.
They ain't writing in the comment section.
Mm-hmm.
Real bloggers are not shakers and movers, decision makers, or power brokers.
Mm-hmm.
Give a damn what you say about me. You don't even know me. Most people talking about me don't even know me.
Right.
You know how I know you know me? You got my cell number.
Right.
Nah, dog, you ain't got my cell number, dog. Well, what you say about me don't even
Right.
matter. Now, if you got my cell number,
Mm-hmm.
like if Said was somewhere dogging,
Right.
that'd hurt me. Because this is a dude that we got history.
Yes.
If Ricky Smiley was dogging me, that'd hurt me. If Quake was dogging me, that'd hurt me. If 50 Cent dogged me, I ain't never done nothing to 50. We ain't got no beef, but I'm just using him as an name.
Right.
I wouldn't be as effective.
Right.
I would be going like, what you
Right.
talking about me for?
Right.
See, my mind ain't down there. And then I stay on the wall. If I stay on the wall, even if you throw rocks up, if I stay on the wall, even if your rocks hit me, how much steam it got? You had to throw up on the wall. But if I come down off the wall
Right.
to address you, you can bust me dead in the head with the rock.
Michael Harriot. We stay on the wall.
Yeah, I agree with some of that, right? So in transparency, right? Like I have written things critical of stuff Steve Harvey has said, right? And I think there's a difference, right? Because like if somebody, asked me like, so I thought you didn't like Steve Harvey because you criticized him. I was like, well, I criticized the thing he said. And I think there's a difference and a nuanced difference between criticizing an idea and something someone says and criticizing them, right? So like, if we're being honest, Steve Harvey, like no matter what anybody says about him, like there's a couple of things you can't take from, like he's probably one of the hardest working people. Like James Brown ain't here anymore. He might be the hardest working dude in show business, right? And he says he said some stuff like the thing I most criticized him for once is that he said, like, there was a thing he said about rich people don't sleep. Like, if you sleep past 8 a.m. And so I wrote about the idea of perpetuating the notion that there is something that rich people do that poor people don't do, or people who aren't rich don't do, that is delineating line between the two, right? So it ain't like rich people work harder. Actually, what I do is use data. I use data and said, well, if you look at the Bureau of Economic Statistics, right, they say that people who make less than $75,000 a year work more hours a week and more hours a day, right? It's not how hard or how often or how much you work or how often you sleep. I mean, there's even data about that decides on whether or not you'll be financially successful. Because if it was, everybody just wake up a little bit earlier, right? Money don't fall out the sky and you got to catch it. But the point that I'm getting at is, and Steve Harvey, all the other stuff that Steve Harvey does is not negated by the one dumb thing he said, right? Like, this is what I'm saying.
We got to chew up the meat and spit out the bone. I don't go to Steve Harvey for intellectual prowess, for history. I'm not going to Steve Harvey for economic, even though he is a rich person, I'm not following his blueprint on how to be rich, period, anyway, right? And I'm not actually going to go to him for parenting advice or relationship advice, because that's just not where I'm going. But I do think that there are some things that he says, and the point of this conversation is we need to be critically thinking enough to not discard everything, to not, or do what Michael Harriot did, go pick through why this is not right. But you don't have to attack him personally and start talking about how he looks and all this other, because this is the default that we're in right now. We gather folk up and snatch their edges as a show of force, or some sort of prowess on our end, when it's really just small. Like, chew up the meat, spit out the bones, or do what Michael Harriot, use your pen and the data to show why it's wrong. I love that.